Welcome to Shenzai.com's first ever video review of a MacBook Air clone. And I want to stress again that this is a clone product that we're looking at here. We went into the markets in Shenzhen down there, Huachong Bay, and we picked out what we thought from testing and looking at and handling all of the different products in the market, what we felt was probably the best MacBook Air clone that we could find. Now, I'm going to just start booting it up and timing the boot here while we're talking. This product, it is 13 inches screen. It's very close to the original in that sense. The actual weight of the product is exactly the same as an original MacBook Air. The build quality, which we'll go into in a moment as we take a closer look and walk around the device, was actually quite good, and that's how we kind of chose this device, remembering that we couldn't really test it in the market in terms of longevity or how well the product's really going to perform over the ages. We did test everything in the shop, and we were able to see that the Wi-Fi was working, the webcam was working, all of the different core pieces in utility for the I/O were actually working as well. So that's how we chose this MacBook Air, and as we'll just be going through this for you here in a moment so you can take a closer look for yourself. We're just about here. Oh, we've got a little bit of a Shenzai extra feature with some custom boot music for you. Alright, well, we're not quite fully booted up here, but I think we've got to green, so we're looking about 1 minute and 7 seconds, which I think, maybe give or take another 20 seconds there until all of the different pieces are loaded. It's also a bit unfair because the guys have included quite a bit of software already on the device as part of the package, which also, I guess, should factor into the fact that what you're looking at here is a US $265 device. Now, the first thing you'll think about when the MacBook Air, of course, is famous for its size and its weight. And if you take a closer look at the device here, you can see that it is incredibly thin. Absolutely amazing in terms of that. With the screen closed here, you can see it's only a few millimeters thicker than the actual original MacBook Air. They have done quite a decent copy job on the exterior as well. A bit with the glossy finishes kind of picking up the fingerprints. The embedded Apple, I guess, is probably pretty well affixed. You're not going to be able to pick that off, or you'll be able to fool your friends, I suppose, fairly easily with that. But, of course, as it's not an original MacBook Air, Shenzai guys have gone a little bit further and added some extra I/O that you might not necessarily find on the original. Now, the original MacBook Air has only one USB port, which you can see there is one here, but there's also a card reader here on this side of the device. If we walk around to the front side of the device, you can see there's the battery life and wireless indicators lights. And if we come around to the other side here, there's a little drop-down port here, which includes an HDMI output, which is quite unique for a MacBook Air, and another USB connection, some audio out, and also there's an Ethernet port just tucked away in here in the corner, which is fantastic for people who have the original MacBook Air. Can tell you that is something that's not a feature on the device, but probably really welcome for people who don't have a wireless connection or have a faster connection to their LAN maybe than they do through their Wi-Fi. Now, going back to the device, there are, of course, some key differences in the product, though, from the original. Build quality. Now, again, in the shops, as far as we could tell, this was probably the best build quality that we could handle and play with around there. The keyboard is actually an individual styled chiclet keyboard. A lot of the cheaper MacBook Air clones, what they'll have is a fabrication process where the keyboard is actually just one piece with all the little chiclets popping up out of the holes. They look similar, but when you actually play around with them, they don't feel and push quite as nicely as this one does. So it's got the real, almost original MacBook tooling for the individual chiclets, although I have to say they do feel like they could pop off in a second and be on the ground. So you have to be a bit careful with that side of things. In terms of the base and the flexibility of the device, it's quite sturdy. There's not a lot of give and a lot of breakage that could easily happen on the device. But one thing we did notice, here on the front side of the device, it is a little bit sharper than a real MacBook Air. You're going to have to be a bit careful in that area with your, if you're handling it, or you wouldn't want your small children rubbing their hands on there. But overall, I would say the build quality is probably at least as good as second tier and probably even some of the first tier manufacturing netbooks and lower end price products that we've seen out on the market. So in that sense, it's quite a good device. The screen quality, we did some kind of unofficial test where we ran a black screen across the back and a white screen across the back to look for some dead pixels. Nothing was apparent that we could see when we actually tested it in the shop that way. Now, of course, inside, now that's where the key differences are going to be coming. There's no Core 2 Dual that you find in your original MacBook Air. What you're looking at here is an Atom N280, a typical netbook platform with the Intel GMA 8500 graphics as well. So no NVIDIA I on there. Now, that being said, we did some battery life testing on the device, and we got around your typical netbook platform type performance again as well. Battery eater running at full bore, running the whole system at full speed, ran the device out in about an hour and 20 minutes, obviously with certain adjustments with the display resolution, not using your CPU at full load the entire time. You're looking at probably typical 2 hours, maybe a little bit longer than that for a netbook platform. So definitely netbook rather than MacBook Air type battery life and performance. And of course, we've got a few benchmarks and things that we've got for you that we put together as well, that you can see in the written part of the review here that will tell you more about what the actual performance is. But again, it isn't a typical netbook Atom-based platform performance that you can expect. There is a few of the Shanzai customizations that we want to talk about, and that is the little introductory audio that pops up there, the software packages that's included. Now, this is bought in Shenzhen, China. It's got a Chinese Windows XP operating system loaded on it. It has quite a few applications, including Microsoft Office and some localized to Chinese chat programs and some media players and whatnot that are very popular in China. So that's the kind of software package that you can find on the product when you buy it in the store. So for those people who are either ordering or somehow managing to get their hands on products like this, bear that in mind. If you're looking for another language operating system, you're probably going to have to specify that and let them know in advance. We've got it plugged in now because we run the battery eater test on not that long ago, but it comes with some nice peripherals. We've got a nice white cord as well as the power supply. The power supply gets a little bit warm, but I think they all do. And actually the device itself, we had it running for a couple of hours, didn't get any warmer than your typical netbook application. It also comes with a remote control. Now the remote control here is kind of an interesting addition. You are able to do some, if you can see a screen pop up there when I hit the Windows Manager button. It's got a menu as well for adjusting things like the brightness up and down on the device, and you can see there as I'm flicking through the menu, it works quite well. Oh, there we go, it's pulled up the Windows Media Player. Maybe if you were listening to some music and you were sitting down on the sofa or you didn't want to go back over to your netbook and adjust that, you could just sit there and use the remote control and try to scroll through some of your basic media that you might have there. But it's quite handy for that, I would say, and that's a nice little addition and probably something you won't find in your typical netbook, but wouldn't be unappreciated. So you have to give the Shanzai guys a little bit of credit there, especially for adding that kind of little bonuses and thoughtful products in there as well. Okay, so the other area inside that was a little bit of a difference was there's only a gigabyte of RAM on this product. I think you have to bear that in mind, but it does have a 160 gigabyte hard drive, and I think the hard drive speed is a little bit faster than the one that comes in the typical MacBook setup. We'll get that details for you in the written part of the review so you can kind of check those kind of stuff out for yourself. One last area I want to go into before we wrap up the video portion of the review. The mouse pad is excellent. It's got a big size, nice and wide for big flicking and moving across. It is a one piece for the click portion here, for the right click and left click. The responsiveness from the mouse pad to the actual device is exactly what you expect on a typical netbook Windows XP setup. The performance and responsiveness is the same. We're quite impressed by that sense. At the end of it, I guess when we take a look at this, if you're thinking that your MacBook Air is $1,200 something, and the product price for this is US $265, I think if you can manage your expectations down to a netbook level, you'd be very satisfied with a product like this. How long the components would last inside of it, that I suppose is a question we won't be able to get back to you with until we've used the device for a little while. We're going to try to put it through some daily use until, as long as it takes. We've got someone we've picked out who's going to be our typical MacBook Air clone user, and we'll let them play with the device, and we'll get back to you about how long the product actually lasts to give you some idea about what your expectations should be for product life of Shanzai MacBook Air clones. Thanks very much. And